good. Okay.
No. It's not today. Okay. Well, welcome back to another episode of the podcast, the Emotional Mastery Podcast. I have Jessie Eccles again this month to talk about the Taurus season transits. And as we're recording this today, there's so much energy. And so we were just like started talking offline about, things creeping up to Mercury Retrograde, which is tomorrow. And then the eclipse was last night and the new moon. And today the sun moved into Taurus. And I'm just like, it's been intense. So I sort of messaged you after our last call too. So the North Node is in 29 degrees. No, sorry, the new moon and the sun were 29 degrees of Aries, and my North Node is 29 degrees of Aries. So it's been like so much has been coming up. It's been wild. It's been in my my ninth house, but then all this energy is sitting on me right now. So I've got Mercury's direct. Mercury is 15 degrees Taurus. My Mercury is 15 degrees Taurus.
You're a lot of Taurus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uranus is at 17 degrees, I believe. And so that's right over me. I've got my sun. Then the nodes are there. I mean, it's like, I look at the chart and I'm like, everything is pressuring on me right now. So it's been like a wildly, like yesterday at the end of my day, I had to like shake because I had so much energy. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. It's wild. Yeah.
I came in hot just chatting away.
Yeah.
We were like, let's start recording. So sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
But yeah, no, I know I saw like a couple people post yesterday, like about having to just move their body. And I probably needed to do that, but I like couldn't. I was like bedridden, not even sick. I was like, I cannot get up. I'm so tired.
Well, it's interesting. So Taurus rules the throat. And my throat's been hurting. Like I've got a little bit of a sore throat. My kids are like, oh, my throat hurts. So they've been like, of course, I think they use it as an excuse to just like eat the throat lozenges. My mom gets like the Young Living ones. So they're like, quote unquote, healthier. They're really not, but
yeah, just to suck on whatever. Yeah.
But like today I woke up and I was like, that's interesting. Like the sun moves in Taurus, all this energy, all this like emotion's been going on. And like, I've been pretty neutral since I quit drinking, but like the last 48 hours, I've been like that frantic, like emotional energy hasn't been coming up. And I'm like, it's okay. We're just going to breathe through this and know that these are just sensations of the body. They don't have to be mental. And so that's been like super helpful. But I know like you popped on here and you're like, I'm so frustrated. It's like,
you were the first person I saw since this was going on, like with my email stuff. So I was just like, bah!
Yeah. Well, this is all for you. So the moon and everything was in gate 3 in human design. And so you have gate 60 twice in your conscious side. And so that gate 3, now you're like completing that cycle, right? So it's like that gate 60, I know I'm just sort of like diving right in there, but that gate 60 is sort of like the limits and the boundaries around the chaos. Because if you just had gate 3 on its own, it's like without those things, it's pure chaos, right? So like they need each other. And so like I have gate 3 without gate 60. So I'm normally that pure chaos. So coming in with,
so
that's my North Node. Yeah, exactly. So you provide that would be like the structure, the boundaries, the restrictions on the chaos that can be gate 3. And then I provide the chaos for you to turn into, right? And take it.
I feel a bit chaotic right now, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because now you have that energy active, right? So
yeah, well, and it's gate 60. That's my moon in Saturn. Yeah. Yeah, it's my natal moon in Saturn, which is also like where Pluto is right now.
Yep.
So I just, I really don't know what's up from down, to be honest.
Yeah. One, it makes sense, right? That Pluto energy coming in and it's just like transformation and it's like that deep like psychological stuff too with Pluto. So yeah, it's a lot.
Good stuff. But yeah, I mean, Taurus season is wild. Like Taurus, right, is, I love Taurus, and it's so, generally speaking, right, like grounding energy. And it's like, just like, I don't know, the nice things. It's like it's luxury, but like not. So it's just like the nice things. Like my Leo loves Taurus energy. And my husband has a lot of Taurus, and actually my son too. It's just like nice food and being able to enjoy things and like the 5 senses. And it's like spring, even though the weather in Nebraska is so wild right now. But we have so much chaos as well this Taurus season. And just Uranus has been in Taurus for a while too. So like that general like Taurus slowness and stubbornness has been like really tested with Uranus there for several years at this point.
Yeah. And I think it's really, I know we spoke a little bit to this like last episode, but it's like, I feel like it's really calling to like embrace that change and that stubborn Taurus, like fixedness. Is that a word? Fixedness? Whatever it is.
Fixedness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is now.
It's like, it's really, it is, it's challenging that, you know, and like, I know personally, like I've been feeling it, and with, you know, the collective. And I would just be curious, like, if you have natally a Taurus North node specifically, like how are you feeling that? Because I noticed like there's somebody that I know who has a Taurus North node, and I've just have been noticing things that they're not like aware of astrology or anything like that. But I'm like, that's interesting because you got it like sitting right on you right now.
Yeah. Personally, my husband also has it. So I like have been observing. He, you know, will kind of, he's not super into astrology, but every now and then when something happens, he'll be like, oh, was it this? And so I've been trying to like tiptoe around it because everything's changing. Hopefully in the best ways. That's what it seems like. But yeah, North Node in Taurus. And that you said you have that?
No, somebody I know.
Okay.
Mine is in Aries.
That's what it was. Okay. I was like, I swear we were just okay. So yeah, with your North Node in Taurus, like this is also your nodal return. It's a big deal, right? And that also means your South Node's in Scorpio. And I do think with South Node in Scorpio, like control is a big thing that you need to let go of in general. And your nodal return is not only your nodal return where you're kind of having to you know, step into your true self, into your higher self, into your soul's purpose, but Uranus, which is like the total opposite of anything Taurus, Scorpio, fixed and control, is making you feel wildly out of control during this whole time, which from my perspective, because I'm not in it, like from my perspective, I think that's a great thing for a Taurus North node because it is helping you really kind of like shake things up, moving towards your purpose. But on top of that, what was I going to say? I saw something like it was, so, you know, it goes Aries, Taurus, Gemini, the cycle of the zodiac, right? And Aries is that, it's like that initiation and that creation. And I was looking at something recently, it was like Aries creates and Taurus incarnates. And I loved that. I don't even know where I saw it, but I just like had a note about it. And I just loved that because we're going through collectively just such this massive shift of like, what the heck is next? And Taurus and people with a Taurus North node are here to build. Like, and right now everything's crumbling. And so we're the rest of this year, you know, you're at the end of your nodal return if you have your North node in Taurus, but it is this building. But like, how do I build? Because it's this total innovative new way of doing it. We have no stepping stones. We have no path to go, and Uranus is supporting that. I feel like Uranus is like, you have to be innovative to build this new way. And so collectively, anyone with a Taurus North node right now, and also Aquarius energy, kind of separate note, but like all of that is asking us to just like build and pave this new way.
And anyone with a Taurus North node that is in their first nodal return now would also have Pluto and Scorpio, correct?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
No.
No.
No. And I think so I spoke wrong last time too. This would be a like second nodal return for like most people. Like this is your second nodal return. Your first is when you're like 18.
But
so
it's the reverse, you said, right?
Yeah. No, you do have, it's like every 9 years to 10 years, you kind of go through the reverse, and then every 9 to 10 years. So yeah, you go through your first actual nodal return. I get so confused, honestly, with like eclipses and stuff because they also like go backwards, right? Like they go from Taurus to Aries instead of Aries to Taurus. But yeah, so your first one would be around like age 18, but you know, that's just such a weird pivotal time for a lot of people anyways. So the second one is in kind of like, yeah, you're what is it, like late 30s, 36, 37, 38 is technically your second one, but it's like I feel like you're post Saturn return at that point. So it's kind of your first real one almost. But no, they would not have Pluto in Scorpio.
Okay. So if it's your second, I guess, because it's generationally, right? So like everybody who is in their late 30s, I don't know when it entered, would have, because I have Pluto,
they would have Pluto in Scorpio. Yeah.
For the second
my
one.
husband's early degree. Yeah. Okay. That's what it is. It's really early degree.
Okay. Yeah. Because I noticed like I think my Pluto is like 4 degrees Scorpio and it's like 5 degrees. It's something. It's like super close where I was like, oh wow.
Right at the beginning. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so you would also have Pluto in Scorpio. So that means South Node and Pluto in Scorpio, potentially even Saturn in Scorpio.
Okay.
So there it's
Yeah.
just an interesting like dynamic with just like this, it's really this idea of control and possessiveness and like also like intimacy and sexuality, and like there's this otherness to that, right? It's not like the Aries Libra like me and we situation, but Taurus is much more like my possessions, where Scorpio is much more like your possessions and our possessions, right? It's shared resources as opposed to mine.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I feel like people who have, the North and South node, like Scorpio, Taurus, and then again, Pluto. And then even if Saturn is in there, it's like that like generation of people are like really here to like do something new, right? To like, to move through and like have those transformations. And then especially with Saturn, right? It's just sort of like all the like the karmic lessons and things that are coming up.
It's really Phoenix rising from the ashes,
Mm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
anyone I think with that has probably been through a hell of a life already, has
Yeah.
gone through a lot. And like, I'm sure you can even speak to this, right? Like, it's like you've lived many lifetimes. And, but that's now with going through nodal return, you're close to yours, and people with Taurus North Node are in theirs. Like, it's really being able to, I want to say kind of like be of service and share that, but it's not that like Virgo energy. It's really just being able to step into your power and be able to, you know, use your life lessons, use what you've gone through, these like deep transformations, fully shed them and be that, yeah, Phoenix rising from the ashes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I had a thought and I lost it, but it was around that. It'll come back or it won't. It's okay. But yeah, yeah. So we have, okay, I try to organize my notes chronologically because like I usually just have like stuff all over the place. But okay, so we had the new moon last night, this morning, whatever it is. We spoke about that the last one. So today the sun moved into Taurus at like 3 something a.m. Central Time. I literally woke up this morning. I was just like singing Taurus season. I was like, oh, it just like to me, it's like that deep, like nature is huge. Just that deep connection with like the self, with nature, with spirituality. Like I just like constantly feel that like wanting to go outside and open my windows. And like, I don't know if it's just now because like I know about, astrology, or it's just like naturally like what comes to me and what makes me feel like alive. But if you want to just speak to, I know we kind of just touched on like Taurus and things like that, but like what we can maybe expect like during Taurus season, what the energy brings. Yeah.
Yeah, so Taurus in general, like you said, it is and in the northern hemisphere it's spring. Like that is Taurus season to me. It's just
Mm-hmm.
spring. Like things are, not just starting to bloom, like they're bloomed, right? You can smell the flowers, and it's the five senses. It's a very sensual sign in general, and it's experiencing things through seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, right? Like all of those things, and like the goodness like of all of that. So that's why it's like really good nourishing food, right? Like, and it does tie to like worth as well. Like, so, a high self-worth, you feed yourself good food, like all of this kind of, it all ties together in that sense. Now, in general with Taurus season, it is a time that, it's a little like more slow and steady wins the race, right? So you come in hot with Aries at the beginning of the zodiac new year, and then Taurus is like, okay, like you had all these ideas, you tried a bunch of them, but like now what are you going to commit to? And how are you going to move forward with that? But this Taurus season, I would say, is a little bit different because we have Mercury retrograde, we have Jupiter moving into Taurus, we have Pluto stationing retrograde, we have all this other stuff that's like, in some cases, with Mercury and Pluto stationing retrograde, it's like, yeah, okay, we do need an extra slow down. But there still might be, with Taurus, I would generally say, okay, this is the time to like commit to something and follow through on that. But with Mercury retrograde and also Pluto retrograde, it may still be a little bit, not necessarily of a back and forth, but not full steam ahead. Like, let me follow through and commit to this one project. It's okay, let me like truly reflect on all of the things from Aries season or even over the last year while, Pluto was direct too, and reflect on all of that to see kind of, it's still a little bit more of a trial error. It's not full steam ahead. It is still slow and steady. But you're not going to necessarily this Taurus season also like start, finish, and end it. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
let me still kind of like start a little bit, kind of move a little bit more forward on those Aries projects, but there's still some kind of turbulence, I think, with it.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Yeah.
also in this eclipse portal.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. The eclipse, like the chaos that like is created,
Yeah.
right? It's not necessarily time to like jump in and take the action and do, right? And I think Taurus in itself would be very supporting in that because it is a little bit slow moving. And I think about like Ayurveda, the Kapha in Ayurveda,
Mhm.
very much with that Taurus energy because it's just like
Yes.
very grounded, very like motherly. It's, you know, it's like all of those like
Other.
sensual things. Exactly. And when that becomes out of balance, we can become lazy, right? We can become, you know, put on extra weight or like the lack of movement. And it's those things that we sort of need to counter that. And you know, maybe with everything going on, we're going to have a little bit more of that energy to kind of like balance that out. But yeah, that was definitely something I was going to bring up. And I think is really important to like lean into during this time.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
Mhm. So tomorrow, we're recording this on Thursday. So when this episode comes out, it will have already passed. But tomorrow is Mercury going retrograde in Taurus. And I know we spoke to this over on the last episode, so we don't have to like get into it too much. But you know, with that shadow period, and you're already experiencing a little bit, right, with like the technological stuff. So, you know, what can we expect? And especially you know, Pluto goes retrograde the first, May 1st. And
Yeah.
so Mercury goes direct on the, what is it, the 14th? I think I have it written down.
Yep. Correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what can we expect with like both of those energies retrograding?
Yes. So a couple things, like, right, retrogrades in and of themselves are not rare. They always, you know, kind of go viral on social media and all of that. But I think if you're listening to this podcast at this point, you know, it's nothing to be like, oh my God, like it's Mercury retrograde or Pluto retrograde. Like they happen every single year. And we have all, you know, continued to move forward with our lives. But with Mercury retrograde, it happens about 3 times a year for 3 weeks at a time. And this one is happening in Taurus, an earth sign. So again, Taurus already kind of being slow, like Mercury retrograde makes it slower. It's really a time of reflection. And, you know, Mercury rules, you know, all things communication. So this is when we do have technological breakdowns. It's like, I feel like last year, every time Mercury station retrograde was when like one of the big social medias just like shut down for a day somehow, like Instagram was just down. And I was like, that's hilarious. Like that is so, you know, it's so Mercury retrograde. It doesn't mean that that's always going to happen, but that's an example of these just kind of weird technological breakdowns that happen to happen during Mercury retrograde. Oftentimes we see lots of challenges with travel as well, whether like lots of flights delayed or you just like you forget to order your Uber or like whatever. Like there's just kind of this forgetfulness as well because we're just like our mind is like slower, and in Taurus it's stuck and stubborn, especially, so there's this extra stubbornness as well. But I personally actually usually enjoy Mercury retrogrades. It really is an opportunity to be like, yeah, it's okay to slow down, and kind of take that step back and reflect. You know, Taurus is also things like safety and security, like our, you know, mind and body, what grounds you. And you can take, you know, time to kind of reflect on these things, like what does make you feel safe and secure. And I think that it speaks to some of the other bigger things going on because Taurus is also money in some ways, right? It's our money. And we have had some crazy shifts in like the financial world. You know, we've in the US where I honestly I don't listen to the news that much, but I know we're in like a recession, right? Like I know that we have just chaos in the like the stock market. There's just so much going on with that. So on a personal level, like what do you truly value? What makes you feel secure? How do you want to spend your time, your money? And really like slow down on those things because moving forward collectively, I think we're going to see a lot more chaos. And so if you can really ground in your own values and what you truly need, Mercury retrograde is a really good opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm. And it is conjunct Uranus right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that, yeah, that unpredictability. Well, and it's interesting too. I like also don't listen to the news. I always am on the mind. Like if I'm supposed to know something, somebody will tell me. And somebody in
Same,
like on Instagram
for
in my
better or
DM.
worse.
Exactly. Right. But like somebody said something about like money and how we're moving to like this whole digital thing. And then of course, you know, like when one thing like drops in, then I heard it like in a podcast, they were talking about the whole like money system and where we're like, how government is controlling us through digital. It was like a whole thing. And I was like, oh, like this is why I don't
But
watch the
like
news.
South
But
Node in Scorpio, control, like
mm-hmm,
Pluto going retrograde back into Capricorn, there is just, I think stuff is about to change
yeah.
in like a big
Yeah.
way.
And I think it's easy to allow that to sort of get us scared, right? And I think it's really coming back to that alignment and just being like, I create my own reality, and whatever that looks like, and just like kind of coming back to yourself is really important. Because like it is like, that's why I don't watch the news, right? Because it's so easy to like go down that rabbit hole of like fear and oh my gosh, and that's the point of it, right? And I think that with that control piece, it's like to get you scared and to get you to like cling to something or make decisions based off of that fear. So it's just like, I think it's really important to also center and just, when you're feeling that and hearing that, come back to like your truth and your knowing and in that space.
Yeah. And like with Mercury retrograde with this, it's like you can get super clear on like what you value. Like, why do you want money? It's not ever because of the money. Usually it's because you value something around what that money gives you. Is it because it allows you to invest in clothes that you feel good in? Is it because you get more freedom? Is it because you can invest in food that makes, it's what do you actually, why do you care about that money? Most people don't just care about it because of a bunch of dollars in their account. Like that, it's just some fake number on the screen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, I know for me personally too, like in so many, like that money story has been coming up big time, identifying what it means. And then also like, what does abundance mean for me? What does it look like? What is it that I'm seeking? Right? Like for me, it's just travel. I just want to be able to travel with my kids and work from wherever. That's what abundance means to me. And whatever the actual number behind that, doesn't have to be like $10 billion, right? It's just like, I just want to be comfortable and travel the world and show my kids the world, and I'm good. So yeah, I think like reframing that story and identifying what that means for you personally and working with that is really important.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Love that.
Yeah. Okay. So then we have that on the 1st, that was Pluto stationing retrograde. And that's,
so that was Mercury station. So okay, Pluto stationing retrograde, different, right? So Pluto also stations retrograde every single year and all the outer planets are for a very long period of time. So Mercury's for 3 weeks. Pluto will be retrograde until,
I think you said June 11th.
So no, that's
sorry, Capricorn.
Retrograde back into Capricorn. So here so Pluto moved into Aquarius March 23rd. We talked about that. It will station retrograde May 1st, still in Aquarius, where it will chill in Aquarius, still at that 0 degrees of Aquarius, right on my natal moon until June 11th.
Okay. And then
so it stays retrograde.
Got it.
Yeah. June 11th, all the way through October 10th. But from June 11th onwards, it's in Capricorn. And that's a big deal. And I think, we could probably do an episode literally just on that, but maybe we table that part for future. But Pluto retrograde, so then it moves direct October 10th, and it will remain in Capricorn the whole of 2023 once it starts in June, and then it will move back into Aquarius January 21st, 2024. That's when it does its like full Aquarius stint. But this retrograde period is super important because it Pluto, just like any planet stationing retrograde, it's a time of reflection. Pluto is, death and rebirth, transformation. So how have we been transforming individually, but also collectively over, the past 6 months as Pluto's been direct. And then during this time, it is a slower movement forward, but it's like this, like I see Pluto as just like this undercurrent, like it's always happening. And so specific dates with Pluto aren't always necessarily like this big thing. Sometimes they are, but like it's this slow movement happening. And during its time in retrograde, because it moves back into Capricorn for its final time, and it goes all the way back to 27 degrees of Capricorn, which is where the US's natal chart has Pluto, 27 degrees of Capricorn. So it's like this final Pluto return for the US that happens in October. And that's one of the reasons like this particular Pluto retrograde period is just, I think, going to be so wild. It's this real, and we've talked so much about the last 2 episodes, like the beginning of cycles, but the last cycle's not over. And that's what this back and forth is of all of 2023. And that's what this Pluto retrograde period is to me. It's like it's not that we're necessarily taking steps back, but it's like we have not unearthed all that needs to be unearthed at the last degrees of Capricorn.
Is this year an election year? I don't actually
think so. I saw something about people running for stuff. I think it's like stuff will happen this year, but I think 2024 is
okay.
I think
We'll have to Google it. I'll put it in the intro. If it is. But okay. So it is
people
still
don't hate us. Yeah.
I know, right? Okay, but so Pluto is also, it's still in that gate 60 that we've been talking about, which is in the root center. So depending on your setup, it might be activating the root for you. I know for me personally it is. So like if you are like collectively, it is this pressure, right? To sort of, like we talked about, like the gate 60 is like the limits, the structure, the boundaries on the chaos, right? So it is sort of the chaos that we're feeling, it's sort of trying to make sense of it and changing that chaos into order, right? But of course, that process of it can feel, restricting and all the things. And just like anything, if we have too much boundaries and too much structure and too much limits, then it's like the opposite side where it's like we're just isolated and we're alone and we're like trying to control and we're frantic. And then, of course, the other side, if we have too little boundaries and all those things, then it's just like too much chaos. And so we have to find that balance. And I think Pluto is calling for that cycle to like really explore like what that is going to feel like. And then finding that like middle ground where it can sort of play and work with gate 3 that is currently activated by, well, the sun, it's not the nodes. I think the nodes are in gate 27. So for this brief period of time, but I know like things do cycle through gate 3. Jupiter moves into gate 3, so it'll activate Jupiter. So there, that gate 3 is still a big energy this month in Taurus season. So we'll be seeing that with those coming up.
Amazing. Yeah, Jupiter is a big part of this whole month as well, this whole season, because Jupiter moves into Taurus, which is probably, why it goes to that gate 3.
Yeah.
And does form a square with Pluto. So Jupiter and Pluto are I mean, I would say that's probably the biggest, most every like year, the past couple of years, there's been this big outer planet aspect, right? Whether it's like Saturn conjunct Jupiter, the Saturn conjunct Pluto, there's just been so many big aspects. Uranus square Saturn was a big one in 2021. This year, it's Jupiter square Pluto, I think. Pluto also squares the nodes or trines the nodes at some point too. But in what's the date? Let me see.
The 16th, Jupiter moves into Taurus.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's,
and I know we skipped over some things chronologically.
Yeah, we did.
Since we're talking about Jupiter, let me talk about this quickly. But yeah, Jupiter enters Taurus May 16th, and then May 17th it squares Pluto.
Okay.
Because Pluto will still be at that 0 degrees Aquarius, and Jupiter's going to be at that specific 0 degree in Taurus. So it's going to square Pluto, which I imagine that's probably when they're also when Jupiter's also in gate 3, probably. Maybe.
Jupiter, I have it written down, gate 3 on the 16th.
Yeah.
Whether
amazing.
That's the day that it moves in there, I think that is, yeah. So the 16th.
Yeah. So, Jupiter entering Taurus in and of itself, I love, just kind of like Taurus season, like I love. Jupiter entering Taurus, like great, abundance in all of the beautiful things, right? Like amazing. But it starts off, squaring Pluto, which I think is part of the greater collective story going on. And additionally, Jupiter will be joining up with Uranus later in its time, but it's not just Jupiter and Taurus. It's not this like nice, like abundant, really naturey, like expansive time around, food and money and all of these things. It is a time that I think is going to be, a little bit more, I see it to an extent, like, so talking about like being really clear on your values, I see Jupiter squaring Pluto also like a test of our beliefs. And a shift in our beliefs, maybe individually, but certainly collectively. And some of that, again, it's Pluto's like this undercurrent. So none of this is like, nothing happening is new. It's been happening, but it's just gonna, Jupiter expands wherever it is. So it's just going to expand this real like test of beliefs and values and test us on an individual level. Like, are you really aligned with what you care about?
Yeah. And like we talked about last time too, it's, with Jupiter being square Pluto, right, and expanding on all those things, it's not about, seeing our shadows and trying to get rid of them, right? And I think that's where this is going to be really helpful. It's definitely going to magnify our shadows, but it's like with anything, if we want to manifest, if we want to grow, if we want to heal, we have to know what the problem is, right? We have to know what the shadows are to bring them forth and then integrate them and move on. And so I think, although it might be a challenging aspect for a minute, it's definitely going to be helpful.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and I to an extent am just so detached. I live in like my own little world. So like, and I'm quite comfortable. It's funny that I don't like, I'm quite comfortable with chaos, even though I have that gate 60.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it is maybe I'm just my moon and Saturn in Aquarius. Like I'm just very detached. Like I kind of see everything satirizing, like from like a bird's eye view. Like I can see the bigger picture. And I do see Jupiter square Pluto being like really, really intense collectively. And I'm, not one to be fear mongering or be scary, but like this is when we're going to see things in the stock market change. This is when we're going to see money and resources like look different. And that's going to play out in the material world in, maybe companies closing down, bankruptcies, like job losses, like all of these types of things. I think also it's when we're going to see like Taurus is also the environment. I do think we're going to see like more environmental craziness, like eruption, like volcanic eruptions, like tidal waves, like these types of like kind of crazy things will likely happen with this type of energy, especially just kind of post eclipse season as well.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like environmental stuff. That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So that's the 16th. Saturn, I don't know. Let me see what's doing astrology. But Saturn moves into gate 37
Okay.
on the 6th, May 6th, and Saturn again, I don't know how often it changes gates, but yeah, so Saturn moves into gate 37. Gate 37 is out of the solar plexus. It's a tribal gate. It's all about need. It's about establishing order, which of course is so like, aligned to Saturn in itself.
Yeah, Saturn will be happy about that.
Yeah, I know, right? It's about like contribution, structure, hierarchy, but of course, like in that, it is again, it's about the tribe, it's about your community, it's about like your family, right? And being able to place those structures and those boundaries, but in a loving way for the better of everyone, right? And of course, there's always a shadow and a light side of all of that. Gate 37 is also very much like about touch and needs, and so it's moving into that. Again, I didn't make note of when it moves out of that, but I know that is a significant change for Saturn this month.
Yeah, astrologically, it just kind of chills in Pisces for a little while.
Yeah. It's just switching gates a little bit. And then, so actually going back, so the 5th, we have the lunar eclipse.
Yes. Yes. So I think, the last episode is when we talked probably about the solar eclipse, right? Which is like basically right when we're recording this. And so eclipses always happen in pairs. And so that's why, so we're kind of in this eclipse portal as we're recording it, which is still, even though there's not a specific eclipse in between, it's like this really intense time because they always happen in these pairs. And so on May 5th, we have the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, and it's at 14 degrees of Scorpio. So anyone, with fixed energy around, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 degrees, that's going to be a really intense time probably. And with this, so normally eclipses happen on one axis. So we had the Aries new moon eclipse, and Scorpio is a different axis. Scorpio Taurus. So we're shifting kind of eclipses to Aries and Libra. So this one, and then we have one more in October, will be the last 2 eclipses on the Scorpio Taurus axis. So this is kind of one of those reiterating that we're not quite done with this current cycle. We're not quite done with this current story that we've been in the last several years. And this full moon is a time of culmination in and of itself. And so it's also the second to last eclipse on this axis. So it really is this time of culmination, this kind of final time to let go around those, especially Scorpio themes. And with full moons, they tend to be more external, where in new moons tend to be a little bit more internal when we look at eclipses. So I do expect this one to be like, it's still going to affect everyone's individual chart, of course, around that 14 degrees of fixed signs. But with this eclipse, I do think it's, again, kind of right before that Jupiter square Pluto. I think we're going to start seeing things around finances, long-term investments, stock market, externally. I think we're going to start seeing that stuff in the headlines, like shifting, leading up to like the later kind of craziness as well. And it is also like for Scorpio, it's also like it's resources, but it's also like kind of like it's that control. So it's also like attachments as well. And so it's like Taurus' sensuality, where Scorpio is sexuality. And it's this kind of reflection as well during Mercury retrograde on our attachments to possessions, to resources, to things. And again, getting really clear on what we do value, because I do expect our attachments to certain possessions, to certain material things to change, right? Like on a collective level, we're not going to have access to the same like supply chain, for example, that we once have. That type of stuff we need to start to be comfortable with letting go of, and really come into ourself in moving into this Aries energy of like autonomy and self-empowerment. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you talk about attachment. So it's also opposite Mercury, and you unconsciously have Mercury in gate 24. And so it is, this lunar eclipse is opposite Mercury in gate 24. So you may experience some things coming up unconsciously for you, but gate 24 is in the Ajna center, and it is all about like ruminating almost in your mind, right? It's codependence, or it's addiction, because it's like constantly going through cycles and trying to like revisit and reframe and like all these things. And so it does have like a really like addictive patterns within that. And so you bring that up, and I can see that being like a big theme here, because it is also like, it is definitely pulling that in from Mercury. And that's, obviously communication. So what our body is communicating, what our subconscious is communicating, what the unconscious is bringing forward is going to be all about that stuff. So fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and just Scorpio in general, right? It's like the hidden, it's part of the unseen, right? It's different than Pisces 12th house stuff, but it's like it's that stuff like in the back of the attic that you just never want to deal with. Like, it's there, but you're like, yeah, no, we're gonna keep that back there piled up.
I'm trying to see. So it is trine Jupiter as well. And Jupiter's in gate 3. So I don't have it written down when Jupiter moved into gate 3. So it wasn't on the 16th. It's there. I would have to pull up my thing. But okay, Jupiter is in gate 3 on the 5th.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So,
And it's close to Uranus. I think it's 4 degrees off of Uranus, where the sun will be 4 degrees off of Uranus. The moon will be in Scorpio, obviously. And during this like eclipse chart as well, Pluto will be loosely squaring the nodes, which I think is just reiterating, like, again, all of this does impact individual charts, especially if you have like personal planets in these areas, or in these gates. But this is just such a collective story. Like, it's such a collective shift, which of course that impacts the individual. But I just think we're going to see big shifts in systems, in truths, and underlying like secrets kind of start to come to surface.
Yeah. And, from an energetic perspective, from human design, I mean, through all this time, we are having, just collectively, regardless of anything else that you have defined, you have the root and the sacral defined. So every single human being is experiencing the sacral in some way, right? And so, of course, like, there's shadows with everything, is like burnout and like trying to like do everything. And with the root, that pressure, that adrenaline, that like wanting to like get things done and accomplish things. So that like in together is just like every single person is experiencing those transits. So that's can be a lot if you're not used to constantly having this sacral pressure like on you to like do things. Like, a lot of people may be feeling burnout and like, so I think it's really important to find space right now to just kind of come back to yourself, especially if you are not a generator type and you're not used to that energy being pushed on you.
I'm hearing that, like, yeah, it's such a theme. Like, in any way I work with anyone, that is such a theme. And so many people feeling like, they're in these jobs that they don't like, right? This has already been a shift over the last several years, but like, no one's in a job they like anymore, I swear. But I don't know what's next, but I don't know how I'm going to make money, but I don't know, and it's all these things, but there's like, yeah, this pressure to continue to do, because that's the system, that we live in, and everyone has this defined. But at the same time, I think if we can, like, during this time period, this eclipse portal, these retrograde periods, as much as you can. And I like, my email being shut down is I feel like the universe screaming at me too, like, just stop. Just stop. Like, I just finished a launch, and I'm like, okay, what's next? And I'm like, no, okay, I don't actually like need to do that. Just breathe.
Yeah. I've been hearing a lot of people just sort of trying to get into that like more feminine flow and that rest period, because it's just like to constantly have that like go makes
But it's
so much sense.
hard, right?
Yeah.
Because we're so conditioned the other way.
Yeah. Well, and because like, especially in our like digital world and like social media and everything, we feel like if we rest and we stop and we pause, we're just going to be like, people are going to forget about us, and it's like trusting that it's like in those stillness and in that silence is really when the magic is happening. And I hear so many people who are like, I went on vacation and my business blew up, right? It's like, because you're giving yourself what you actually like need, because you can just like go, but for what, And so I think it's a balance and it's a learned thing, because we're all conditioned to like be manifestors and to be generators and to go get and to initiate and to just keep going and grind and hustle. And yeah, I think especially obviously with so much of the transits, like that story is beginning to be rewritten. Like we don't have to work ourselves into the ground like this. Like we can take some time to just like breathe, and assess. And yeah, definitely. And then one question that I had too is, how do you recommend, we talked last time about working with the new moon, during eclipse season, and how maybe not to like manifest or oh my gosh, what's the other word I'm looking for? Totally escaped my mind. Starts with an
Like
I.
set intentions.
Intentions, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why that word was like really hard right now.
Mercury retrograde. That's an example. It's
Yeah.
like these kind of, it's like Freudian slips or like not being able to speak. Like there's just this.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, that's exactly what my mind like went blank. But like with the full moon, which is traditionally, I guess, like more about like releasing. Is it recommended that we still sort of have those practices of releasing during this phase because it is still chaotic, or are we just sort of just trying to lean into it all and just like go with the flow?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both, right? We actually yesterday in my community we had like a pretty long talk about this, and it's it's hard. Like whatever feels good to you, right? Like truly, whatever feels good to you is what you should be doing. But with eclipses, because they're much more faded, there's a little bit, less like kind of control you have over it. So there is, in a way, like personally, I'm like, Jesus, take the wheel. Like I'm just like, I'm probably not going to do anything. I'm probably going to go to bed and hopefully sleep a good night and just see what happens. Like that's kind of my mindset, because I also, I just feel so much heaviness in my chart right now. But it's not bad if you do want to do like some sort of kind of practice, but it's not recommended to do things like charge crystals under eclipses and things like that, because it's chaotic energy, it's unpredictable energy, and you don't have as much kind of like specific control over like that outcome. But I do think it's absolutely still a very important time of release, and there may be things that you have been holding on to that this may just give you the permission to be like, okay, like exhale, like let me let that go, like, and just that's okay. It's not, oh, don't let it go because it's an eclipse. Right? It's just kind of, it is a permission slip to kind of like let those things go that you have been holding on to. But it also still may be bringing up very unexpected things. We do still have Uranus, loosely involved with all of this. And so eclipses are chaotic in themselves, but they're faded. And so kind of whatever happens during this time, and that's why I do say kind of, lean back a little bit more, because whatever happens is helping, realign you, maybe redirect you, or kind of reaffirm that you are feeling like you're on the right path.
Yeah. I think just what keeps coming up to me too is I think it's just because it's Taurus season, like move your body in whatever way that feels, like even if it's just shaking, like last night, right? Like I said, before I bed, I just wanted to like shake it all out and move it all out. And I was just feeling that so much like within my body. And so I just think with all of this energy and with it being in Taurus and so much about like those physical, like you said, those sensations, right? The senses being like sensuality and stuff. I think that could be really supportive in whatever that means for you, right? Whether you like to dance or shake or run or go to the gym, or maybe it's just like walking outside or anything, right? Yoga.
Just movement. And it's Taurus, so slow movement is fine, like totally fine.
Yeah, I normally run at the gym, and really recently I've been incorporating just like incline walking, but like slow. It's nothing like intense, and it still feels good, but it's just like switching it up from having to do it like so intensely to just like feeling into my body and be like, oh, I don't actually feel like sprinting for 15 minutes today. We just walk, right? But I'm still getting the same effect. So yeah, I think slow movement is also good movement.
Yes, exactly. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. That's perfect. Okay. So then the other couple, and if I'm missing anything, let me know. The couple other things I have. So Mars moves into Leo on May 20th.
Yeah.
So what can we expect with that?
Yes. And Venus into Cancer on May 7th. So those are the other two, I think. Right?
Okay.
Do you have
that
too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have it. I have, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start with Venus and Cancer because my brain
Okay.
works chronologically. So we basically, well, let's see, Taurus season. So we have Mercury retrograde, and then we have Pluto retrograde, then we have the full moon lunar eclipse, and then we have Venus entering Cancer on May 7th. Lovely transit, in my opinion. I mean, Venus, like a lot of places, is nice. But Venus moving into Cancer, Venus is it's our values. It rules Taurus, so there is some Taurus themes with that in general. But Cancer is, it's the nurturer. It's we're gonna feel, hopefully, I think, and also especially coming off of the full moon eclipse, it's going to feel more tender. But there could also, like Cancer, it is, emotions, and Cancer energy can be quite moody. It's highs and lows. So there is going to be this like increased need for like, an ability to flow, which is great, coming off of what we kind of just talked about. But also on top of that, like Venus being like, what we love and how we want to feel loved, like there is this kind of like longing for deeper connection, and for maybe more unsaid connection, like just feeling truly, connected, feeling truly nurtured, truly desired. And with that, there may be a desire to be more in your home or around family, or wanting to just create a homey environment wherever you are. And also potentially a need for more alone time.
And I love, for this like brief little period, we have Mars and Venus there, because I think every time I like connect to them, they both, they're both about like sexuality, and there is an element of like, passion and romance that's connected with both of them. So I like that they're kind of both going to hang out there, not necessarily conjunct, but like be there for a while. So I think there'll be a lot of focus right on the home and those like aspects.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it feels really good to me because right now I'm feeling like such a homebody. So it kind of just helps me feel like that's okay. And I do love that they're both going to be in Cancer for a little bit before it moves into Leo.
And then on the 7th, so that's when it moves in. So it's moving into gate 15. And so it's like gate 15 is in the G center. It's opposite the gate 5. So that whole channel is just all about rhythms, and it's like the rhythm of life. And so like having that balance, which I think is so beautiful for Venus as well, and just what it's going into, right? And having that targeted towards the home, right? Like having that rhythm and having that routine and having that like structure and stuff like within your home, but not getting like too stuck in it, and just sort of being able to play with that.
I love that.
Okay. And then on the 20th, Mars moves into Leo.
Yes.
So fire on fire.
Definitely different energy. Yeah. But I gotta love Leo. But yeah, Mars moving into Leo is really going to, and then it moves into Gemini season, like right after that. So it's really like kind of the last transit of Taurus season, but it's kind of full steam ahead on this more direct energy, more it can be more aggressive, but it's also more confident, more passionate, more playful, more creative. And there really is this I think like heart to it as well, right? Leo's like the heart, and Mars, it wants us to be heart led in all of the actions that we take. We may start to feel, I think a little bit sometimes more overly confident in how we express ourselves. And so there's just this extra like boisterous to it, right? But I think that also can be really helpful as we do kind of move forward, or kind of post all of these shifts in maybe beliefs and values and getting really clear on what we need. There is this need to just be like kind of more of this, me first attitude.
And so how would Leo risings be experiencing it? Because it's going through your 12th and into your first, right? Through this transition. And so like having that
right?
energy. Yeah.
Yes.
But I know there's so many other Leo risings out there.
No, there are, but no, it's whenever a transit like goes over your ascendant, right? Goes from 12th to 1st. It's wild, right? Because also it's, whenever something's in your 12th, it's the end of a cycle. And then moving in over your ascendant, it's you, and then into your first house, which is the beginning of a cycle. So it is this end and beginning. But yeah, as a Leo rising, having it have been in Cancer in your 12th, it's so private. So you probably haven't felt like in taking so much action publicly. Like all the action has been happening behind the scenes, right? And it's not that there isn't action that has been taken, but there's just so much kind of like that self-work that's been happening. It's like so much more inward. And then going into your first house, it's this of Leo, like it's this, okay, yep, now I'm ready to be seen. And so it might feel like a real like hard shift, but I feel like, I mean, even I only know like a little bit about, what you've been doing, but I really feel like for you, there has been this, so much work has been happening behind the scenes, and there is going to just be this like, okay, ready, like, let's pull the plug on this next kind of thing. Right. And there's just going to be this readiness to feel seen, maybe not immediately, especially depending on like where your ascendant is, like what degree. But I do think there's going to feel like Leo risings will be able to feel more comfortable being seen, which Leo risings are so interesting to me in general, right? Because Leo, right, it is the one that's like, okay, let's be seen. But as a rising sign, I feel like Leo risings are super sensitive, and like they're spending their whole life trying to find that confidence that Leo naturally has.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I first found out that I was a Leo moon and Leo rising, I was like, I don't resonate with that at all. Like, I'm not like bold and confident in all of those things, throughout my whole life. But like now I feel like the older that I get and the more that I settle into it and I realize it, I'm like, oh yeah, like even, with like all the tattoos that I have, right? That's so Leo. Cause then people are like, oh, I remember you because you're tattooed. Like I make myself stand out, even though subconsciously it was probably the intention. I didn't realize I was doing it, right? But it's just like little things like that. And it's also really interesting what you said about like Mars, like maybe not like showing all of those things, because like I'm so much, obviously with the podcast and social media, a lot of myself is public, and that's the intention behind it, is to just share my experiences. But there has been one specific project that it's like blowing, like it was something that felt so aligned and so lit up. And it's like the one thing that I'm not yet talking about. And it's really interesting that you describe it that way. Cause I'm like, maybe that's why it's sort of been like under the covers until I'm ready to just be like, blow the lid off it. And then I'm just going to, like embody that and be like, this is it. Like everybody.
Absolutely. That's it. I absolutely think that.
Yeah.
And also like they're just Mars and Leo, like there's more risk taking too. It's like part of it is because, I mean, maybe this project is kind of like your baby. Like it's this, like you've been nurturing it with Mars and Cancer, right? And really just taking care of it. And now it's like, okay, let's take that risk. Cause it is like, you have to be okay with like being vulnerable about it, right? With Mars and Leo, like there is this, you want to protect your heart with it. And so you have to kind of, with Mars there, it's like, oh, nope, just let's take the risk.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. Yeah. Is there anything that I missed? Okay. Uranus actually so there's one thing I missed, at least on my end. I'm not sure if I missed any other transits, but Uranus moves into gate 23 on May 9th. And gate 23 is just its shadow is complexity. Its gift is simplicity. This is my conscious sun. So I'm like very familiar with this energy. This is like how I like run my life. So fun that Uranus is just going to be shaking that up and making it unpredictable. But, like with this, it's like noticing when you are in that space of complexity. Like, are you over explaining? Is your house looking like chaos? Is there too much stuff? Like whatever that is, and really refining it down to make it simple. Like, can we have clear, direct communication? Like, all of these things, just having it. And of course, like in Taurus, just like super grounded and all those things, just simplicity. And simplicity doesn't have to mean like, what do you call it? Like, it's not beautiful or it's that concept of less is more, right? When we have less, we feel better. And that creates abundance. So Uranus is moving there on May 9th.
The whole minimalism type idea. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. I'm excited for that.
Me too.
And I'm excited for it to go over your sun, to be honest. At the same time, Mars goes over your rising.
I know, right? It's going to be intense. And it's all my 10th house. So it makes so much sense to what I've been experiencing. And yeah. It's fun.
I love that. I can't wait to be on the sideline of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyone follow me or listening, you all will have, what do you call it? Front row seat. Yep.
Yep.
So yeah. Is there anything else that we did not touch on for Taurus season?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure, but
yeah. But those are like the major ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I don't know. Any last words for anyone going through this season?
I mean, no, I wish I like had something really profound to say, but like just I do think it is like, yeah, a letting go in the sense of just like, I hate the word surrender to an extent, because I'm like, what does that mean? Like, how do I surrender? What do I do? Yeah. Tell me what I do, which is the whole point, right? Like, don't ask what you do, just like surrender. Yeah. But I do think it is this like much simpler time, right? And I think there is going to be, I'm reiterating what you've already said, really, but it's like chaos can happen on the outside, but like you can still stay grounded within yourself, within your home, with this Cancer energy, within even your community, right? Like there's this groundedness that you can keep. And that's kind of like also just speaking to your own body, your own nervous system, like that it is safe to like live. It is safe to have emotions. It's safe to kind of be in this world, even with this kind of chaos happen. Like we only kind of have control over ourselves. And I think kind of just letting go, like we're not going to fix the world if we can't just like have that stability within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to sort of tack on that, because that's exactly where my mind was going to. It's like understanding something that's been helpful for me and all this like chaos and everything that's been coming up is like understanding that like my physical body sensation, like that nervous system reaction, it's my body, right? Like we externalize it and make it to mean like there's a predator or like something, like that's what our mind does. But it's like, no, these can just be sensations. And can you like lean into that and be like, oh, like my body's just trying to protect me. It's trying to put me in fight or flight mode. And I don't have to live there because there is no like understanding that you're safe. There is no actual external like predator or force that is trying to, whatever the word is I'm looking for right now. Right. And just be here and kind of calm all of that. So yeah, I think those practices, again, movement is huge in being able to, I'm going to keep going back to that this month, but like it really is, right. In regulating your nervous system, it is the most underutilized, antidepressant out there. Is just simply moving your body. So I urge everyone to just like find whatever practice that looks like for you. Slow. It does not have to be intense, but just something to move the energy in your body.
I need to be reminded of that all the time. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
And I see it with even like my 2-year-old. I saw something recently like that kids, like they go crazy before bed, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's them regulating their nervous system. And I was like, oh, that makes me feel better that my son is wild all the time right before bed. And sometimes, and he can just like flip it off and go to bed, but it is that movement and regulating that.
Yeah. Well, and there was like, I can't remember where I read it, but there was like the study of, like of animals, like rabbits, right? Was the example. And it's like when rabbits are running from a predator afterwards, they shake like intensely and then they move on. And that is them regulating the nervous system. They don't sit and think about, oh, what if it had gotten me? Or what if it gets me next time? Or what if this, what if that? It just lets it go and it moves on. And so
dang humans,
be like a rabbit and shake.
On that note.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll see you again in Gemini season.
Yeah, wild that we're there. But yeah.
I know,
okay,
right?
sounds good.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.